Well, 20 years old is interesting because I recently found out from one of my pastors that biblically adulthood is seen at 20. And I really like that and agree with that because I've kind of had a problem with the cultural at 18 you're an adult. Biologically, frontal cortex of your brain's not done developing until 25. And I remember that we got to celebrate that together with you, Simeon.
Right.
So you're fully developed human now. But I just think that 20 is a better, probably gauge of adulthood. So obviously, like the scripture stands true. So finding that out from one of my pastors was kind of insightful. And I was like, yeah, there is something about coming out of your teens completely. 18, 19, 20. It's like a new era in life. Obviously, we know that we're talking about 20s. But I think for me to go back to think about 20 years old, I would have been married for a year. So there's probably some things that, would be very pointed information or advice that I would give myself because of my set of life circumstances. So I have to think about the question from the standpoint of not just what I would tell myself, because there's going to be things that aren't going to relate to everybody else that might not be married or that are still very much enjoying singleness or maybe hating singleness.
Right.
There's only really two camps of people. They either love being single or they hate it. And there's a smaller camp that they, find contentment in whatever season you're in, which is a very mature thing to do that is hard for people at any age and stage of life. I think people battle probably the strongest with contentment. So the overarching answer that I would give would be something along the lines of asking myself a question around contentment. And what does it mean to find a true contentment in your relationship with the Lord and the current people that are around you? It's an overused phrase, but it's okay. We can use it for this the season you're in.
Yeah.
I wish, we need better verbal portfolio for some of the things we say, because it just becomes, especially in the Christian world,
Right.
Scripture's timeless, but our Christianese gets old after a while. But, it's true. There's seasons of life. There's stages of life. There's semesters of life. I don't know the right phraseology, but it would probably be something around contentment and, taking inventory of what are you really desiring? What are your genuine motives? Probably something along the lines of spend more time questioning what it is you really want. Get to the bottom of it instead of just constantly feeling pressure from the outside or projecting an expectation from somebody else. What is it that you're actually after? And see how holy those things are. Weigh them out in your time with the Lord and really sit with Jesus and be honest about what it is you're really wanting out of life. Some people swear up and down that they don't want recognition, they don't want notoriety, they don't want fame. But honestly, when they really strip everything away, they're not content because they feel like they're not known enough, or they're not doing enough, or they're not making a big a dent in the story like they think they are. And I think the your 20s, not the historical 1920s, but your 20s,
The roaring 20s.
the roaring 20s of life is
Best.
really full of that. If you're honest, it's thinking all these big things. You're gonna be some kind of. And I'm not trying to diminish phrases like this, because I tell my kids all the time, hey, I'm gonna train you and teach you how to be able to do big things for God. And I use that language on purpose because it's not about doing big things for yourself.
Right.
And I think in your 20s, it's harder to distinguish what's my driver? Is it self or really God? And a lot of it is because you still haven't figured out how to be content with anything. And for some people, just innately, the way they're wired, contentment feels like being apathetic or not having enough ambition, drive, desire. And to me, there's this spiritual secret in being able to learn how to be comfortable in your own skin, learn how to be confident in your relationship with the Lord, and what it really means to surrender more and more of your life to Jesus. There's so much, I think, of your 20s that obviously is trying to figure things out. If anybody's honest, your whole life is about trying to figure things out. You're not in charge of anything that you really think you are. If you're a believer and if you're a disciple of Jesus, then that means at best, even on your best day, you're just a follower. You're following the guy that knows everything that you don't know. And on your worst day, you're a follower because you're trusting the guy that has it right when you don't. So overarching, 20-year-old coaching session would probably be something about me asking questions in a way to decipher how content are you really, and where have you bought the lie that relationship, that promotion, that thing, that widget, whatever it is that you feel like you have to get, is going to give you something that's not possible right now in regards to you and your life in God and your union with Christ. And giving yourself permission to take the pressure off, like you might not ever be who you think you're going to be from the standpoint of notoriety, influence, impact. That's part of the reason I think that we have so much of this hyperinflation in our culture right now, is because it's pretty simple. For some, it seems. It's still a gift and a talent, and not everybody's going to do it, but social media, internet gives an illusion like everybody has the opportunity to be a sensation.
Right.
And that's not true. And I think that especially nowadays, in the current time we're living in, there's just a lot of pressure really early. And some of it's programming. I remember being in school, obviously, and simple things like we were drilled that if you don't make X grade on the ACT, SAT test, your life is going to suck. Like, it's going to be terrible.
Right.
And you're going to have to take, whatever stereotypical lower job, and it's, and I know, like, there's place for that. Like, do your best, shine at your gifts, grow and be faithful with the things that God's given you. But at the end of the day, trusting in the Lord and being faithful to Him and learning how to genuinely find joy and be content, as Paul said, in all circumstances, that to me is one of the major secrets to life.
Yep.
And I think it's possible for people to start a practice and to start healthy habits and to start a journey in their 20s that can get them there a lot quicker than people are forced sometimes to do with the stereotypical midlife crisis. Maybe if you tap into divine contentment in your 20s, you're not on your third marriage and buying a Corvette in your mid to late 40s or your 50s.
Right.
Stereotypical stuff there. So to me, I think that's it. It would be some kind of conversation around that, and doing my best. Obviously, I am a pastor. I can't get away from it. It's part of how God's made me. I would be looking for that in myself and in others. What do you really know about contentment? And where are you really at in your relationship with God? And if you don't know the Lord at all, well, this is a great place to start. And if you do, how much are you really accessing a joy that's unspeakable and a peace that surpasses understanding? Because I think that so much of 20s is foundation building years, so people are venturing off into their first real job or college experience, and you're experiencing adult life, and it's the first time that you've ever done it. And a lot of great habits are picked up in your 20s, and a lot of terrible habits that are hard to break.
Right.
So really leaning in on the reality that 20s are foundational for your adult life, and you need to walk this balance of taking it seriously but not taking yourself too seriously, and giving yourself room to be able to trust God with big risks and big faith steps. I always encourage people, your 20s is your time to take steps and risks that maybe later in life you might not feel as inclined to take. You can do it at any time in life, but 20s typically for most is a time of singleness, for at least some of those years, for some the early part. But let yourself be wholeheartedly thrown into what it means to be totally passionate for the Lord, following His plan for your life, and know that it's okay to be ordinary. God only uses ordinary people to do amazing things, and instead of trying to build some empire, build and further His kingdom and be sold out to what that means. Like, try to get as sold out as you can in your 20s to Jesus, so that the rest of your life you live from that foundation of first love. There's so much focus in our culture on discovering the right person for you and romance and romanticizing the idea of relationship, that you miss really fertile soil to build the romance that's supposed to last your entire life, which is with the Lord.
Right.
And to get a foundation built on first love, so that as more responsibility of the adult world comes, and opportunity and career pressure and kids and family, you always have a place to return to. If you don't find that contentment, which is being loved by God and loving Him back in simplicity, you have no tether for the rest of your life. And people squander their 20s. They either grew up in really strict and rigid home systems, and then they have a time of doing whatever they want, and rebellion, and tasting everything that the world has to offer. And then they got to get serious because they meet somebody that they know they're not going to be able to behave that way and be with them. And this is stereotypical story. They get drawn up to higher moral code because of this person that they fall in love with, or vice versa. And I'm like, for a generation that's so hungry to be unique and different and legitimate and genuine, I'm like, then don't play into the same societal script. Like, you're doing the same thing that's been the story that's been playing for forever. Like, I pastorally really, have a heart and passion to see what I'm seeing right now from an amazing group of young adults being raised up all over the world, and especially in the United States, that are literally just like, you know what, I just want to be married to Jesus, and whatever comes out of that, I'm thankful for and excited for. And I feel like I'm seeing more and more of that, of people that are taking their spiritual walk seriously in times of singleness and in times of immaturity, and watching them grow at a rapid pace has been pretty phenomenal. It's a place that, I think is rare, but it's definitely real and accessible. So something of those 15 million things I said.
Yeah, and that's great wisdom.
I would start with.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was, I believe, will be very valuable to a lot of people. So
good.
Let's go.